I sat in the worn vinyl chair by the window of my nursing home room, watching the rain streak down the glass. The room was small, barely large enough for the bed, the chair, and the small dresser where I kept the few belongings my children had allowed me to bring. The walls were painted a depressing shade of beige, the kind of color that made you feel like you were already halfway to the grave. The fluorescent lights hummed faintly overhead, casting a sickly yellow glow over everything. The room smelled like antiseptic and stale air, the unmistakable scent of a place where people came to die. I had been here for 3 years now. 3 years since my children had decided I was too much of a burden to keep at home. They had brought me here on a Tuesday, promising they would visit every weekend. They had smiled, hugged me, and assured me this was the best thing for everyone. That was the last time I saw any of them. My son, Michael, had called twice in the first month, his voice rushed and distracted. My daughter, Sarah, had sent a card on my birthday, the handwriting so hurried it was barely legible. And my other daughter, Emily, the one who had always been closest to me, had not contacted me at all. I had heard through a cousin that she had moved across the country, starting a new life far away from the mess her siblings had created. And so I sat in my chair, watching the rain, waiting for something that was never going to come. I was 78 years old, and I had spent my entire life building a legacy for my children. I had worked 60-hour weeks to put them through college. I had sacrificed vacations, new cars, and even my health to make sure they had everything they needed. I had given them the best years of my life, and in return, they had given me a one-way ticket to a place where no one ever visited. The nursing home staff were kind enough, but they were overworked and underpaid. They did their best, but they could not replace the love of family. They could not fill the empty space in my chest where my children used to live. I spent my days reading old books, watching television shows I did not care about, and staring out the window at a world that had moved on without me. And then, one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. The door to my room creaked open, and a nurse poked her head in. "Mr. Harrison, you have a visitor," she said, her voice bright and cheerful. I blinked, confused. I had not had a visitor in over a year. "A visitor?" I repeated, my voice hoarse from disuse. "Who is it?" The nurse smiled. "It is Mr. Langley, your attorney. He said it is urgent." My heart skipped a beat. Arthur Langley was my longtime attorney, the man who had handled my estate planning for over 30 years. He had been a trusted friend and advisor, and he had always been meticulous about my affairs. But he had never visited me here. He had never called. I had assumed he had forgotten about me like everyone else. The nurse stepped aside, and Arthur walked into the room. He was older now, his hair fully white and his face lined with age. But his eyes were still sharp, still full of the intelligence and determination that had made him such a formidable lawyer. He carried a leather briefcase in one hand, and his expression was serious. "Charles," he said, sitting down in the chair across from me, "it is good to see you." "Arthur?" I replied, my voice trembling slightly. "What are you doing here? It has been years." Arthur set his briefcase on the floor and leaned forward. "I know, Charles, and I am sorry. I should have visited sooner. But I have been working on something important, something that has taken a long time to put together." I stared at him, my mind racing. "What are you talking about?" Arthur reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of documents. He placed them on the small table beside my chair. "Charles, do you remember the trust fund you set up for your children? The one tied to the family estate?" I nodded slowly. "Of course. I set it up 30 years ago. It was supposed to ensure they were taken care of after I was gone." Arthur nodded, his expression grim. "Yes. But what you may not remember is the clause you added to the trust agreement, the one that required your children to maintain a certain level of contact and caregiving responsibility in order to receive their inheritance." I blinked, trying to recall. The memory was fuzzy, buried under years of medication and loneliness. But slowly, it came back to me. I had added that clause after hearing a story about a wealthy man whose children had abandoned him in his old age. I had been horrified by the idea, and I had insisted on including a stipulation that would protect me from the same fate. I had forgotten all about it. The clause, Arthur continued, states that each beneficiary must maintain regular contact and provide reasonable caregiving support to you in your old age. Failure to do so results in forfeiture of their inheritance, which then reverts to a charity of your choosing. He paused, letting the words sink in. Charles, your children have not visited you in 3 years. They have not called. They have not provided any caregiving support. Under the terms of the trust agreement, they have forfeited their inheritance. I sat in stunned silence, the weight of his words slowly sinking in. My children had abandoned me, and now they were going to lose everything. The estate I had spent my entire life building would not go to them. It would go to a charity, a cause I had never even chosen. But, I stammered, I do not even have a charity in mind. I never thought. Arthur held up a hand, cutting me off. That is why I am here, Charles. I need you to decide where the money will go. There is also the matter of the trustee. Under the terms of the agreement, you have the power to appoint a new trustee to oversee the distribution of the estate. I stared at the documents, my mind reeling. I had spent 3 years feeling forgotten, abandoned, and worthless. And now, in a single moment, everything had changed. I had power again. I had control. I had the ability to make my children pay for what they had done to me. Before I tell you what I decided and how I made my children face the consequences of their abandonment, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit the like button and subscribe to Vindication if you have ever been let down by people who were supposed to love you. To understand how we ended up in that small nursing home room, with my attorney delivering news that would shatter my children's carefully constructed world, you have to go back 3 years. The day my children brought me to the nursing home was the worst day of my life. It was a Tuesday, just like the day Arthur visited. The sun was shining, but I felt nothing but darkness. Michael and Sarah had arrived at my house early in the morning, their faces set in identical expressions of forced concern. "Dad," Michael had said, his voice gentle but firm, "we have been talking, and we think it is time for you to consider moving into a facility. Somewhere you can get the care you need." I had stared at him, confused. "I do not need care. I am perfectly fine. I cook for myself. I clean for myself. I do not need any help." Sarah had sighed, the sound heavy with impatience. "Dad, you forget things. You leave the stove on. You wander outside in the middle of the night. It is not safe for you to be alone anymore. I do not do those things." I had protested, but my voice had sounded weak, uncertain. They had already made up their minds. They were not asking for my opinion. They were telling me what was going to happen. They had packed my things quickly, throwing clothes and books into bags without any care. They had loaded me into Michael's car and driven me to the nursing home without a single word of comfort or reassurance. They had signed the paperwork, handed me over to the nurses, and walked away without looking back. Emily, my youngest daughter, had not been there. She had refused to participate in what she called the betrayal. She had argued with Michael and Sarah for weeks, insisting that they were making a terrible mistake. But they had ignored her, dismissing her concerns as sentimentality. And when she could not change their minds, she had cut off contact with all of them. I had not heard from her since. The first few months in the nursing home were the hardest. I had waited by the phone every day, hoping for a call that never came. I had stared out the window, watching for cars that never pulled into the parking lot. I had asked the nurses if anyone had left a message for me, and they had always shaken their heads sadly. Eventually, I stopped asking. I stopped hoping. I accepted that my children had moved on with their lives, and I was no longer part of them. I was an obligation they had finally fulfilled, a burden they had finally set down. I was nothing to them anymore. But now, sitting in my room with Arthur, I realized that I was not nothing. I was still the man who held the keys to the kingdom. I was still the man who controlled the legacy they had been so eager to inherit. They had forgotten about me, but they had not forgotten about my money. And now, they were going to learn that their neglect had a price. Arthur leaned forward, his voice low and serious. "Charles, I need you to make a decision. The trust agreement gives you the authority to appoint a new trustee. I am recommending that you appoint someone who is not a member of your family, someone who will carry out your wishes without being swayed by emotional appeals from your children." I thought about it carefully. Arthur was right. Michael and Sarah had already proven they could not be trusted. They had abandoned me when I needed them most. They had shown that their love was conditional, dependent on what they could get from me. I could not leave the fate of my estate in their hands. "I want you to handle it, Arthur," I said finally. "You have been my attorney for 30 years. You know what I want. You know what is fair." Arthur nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I was hoping you would say that. I have already prepared the necessary paperwork. All you need to do is sign." He slid a document across the table, placing a pen beside it. I picked up the pen, my hand trembling slightly. This was it. The moment I took control back from the people who had tried to take everything from me. I signed my name with a steady, deliberate stroke. Arthur took the signed document and placed it carefully in his briefcase. "There is one more thing, Charles. I have been in contact with Emily." I looked up sharply, my heart pounding. "Emily? You have spoken to Emily?" Arthur nodded. "She reached out to me shortly after your children put you in this facility. She wanted to know if there was anything she could do to help. She has been concerned about you, Charles. She never stopped caring." I felt a lump form in my throat. Emily had been my favorite, though I had never admitted it to the others. She had always been the one who called just to talk, who visited without any ulterior motive, who genuinely enjoyed my company. And she had been the only one who had stood up for me when the others decided to send me away. "Why did not she visit?" I asked, my voice cracking. Arthur sighed. "She was afraid. She knew that Michael and Sarah would make things difficult for her if she tried to intervene. She also did not want to cause you more stress. She thought that if she stayed away, your life would be easier." I shook my head slowly. She was wrong. Having her here would have made everything easier. "She is the only one who ever really cared," Arthur nodded. "I know, Charles. Which is why I am suggesting that you appoint Emily as the new trustee. She is the only one who has proven herself worthy of your trust." I thought about it carefully. Emily had not visited, but she had not abandoned me either. She had been trying to protect me, to make my life easier. She had made a mistake, but her heart had been in the right place. Unlike her siblings, she had never wanted anything from me except my love. "Yes," I said finally, "appoint Emily. She will do what is right." Arthur smiled warmly. "I will take care of it, Charles, and I will make sure your children are informed of their forfeiture. They need to understand the consequences of their actions." The next few weeks were a flurry of activity. Arthur visited me regularly, keeping me updated on the progress of the estate settlement. He told me that Emily had accepted the position of trustee and that she was determined to carry out my wishes faithfully. He also told me that Michael and Sarah had been notified of their forfeiture. Their reactions were exactly what I had expected. Michael called Arthur, screaming threats and accusations. He claimed I was not in my right mind, that I was being manipulated, that I had no right to cut them out of the inheritance. Sarah sent a series of increasingly desperate emails, begging for a chance to explain herself, to make things right. Neither of them called me directly. Neither of them came to visit. Then, one afternoon, the door to my room burst open, and Michael and Sarah stormed in. They looked like they had aged 10 years in the past few months. Their faces were red and blotchy, their clothes rumpled and wrinkled. They looked less like successful professionals and more like people who had just been handed a devastating blow. "You cannot do this, Dad," Michael shouted, slamming his hands on the small table beside my bed. "You cannot cut us out of the inheritance. We are your children. We are entitled to that money. We have a right to it." I looked at him calmly, meeting his rage with quiet composure. "You have a right to nothing. You abandoned me. You put me in this place and forgot about me for 3 years. You did not call. You did not visit. You did not even send a card on my birthday. And now you expect me to reward you for that?" Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling with desperation. "Dad, we made a mistake. We were wrong. We were just so busy, and we thought you were being taken care of. We did not mean to hurt you. Please, just give us another chance." I stared at her, feeling nothing but cold indifference. "You had 3 years to give me another chance. 3 years to call, to visit, to show me that you cared. And you did nothing. You only came back because you want my money. You do not want me. You never did." Michael's face contorted with fury. "You are being unreasonable, Dad. You are old and confused. You do not know what you are doing. Arthur is manipulating you. He is trying to steal your money for himself." I laughed, a cold, bitter sound that echoed through the small room. Arthur is the only person who has been honest with me. He visited me when you could not be bothered. He told me the truth when you were busy lying to yourself. He is the one who reminded me of the clause you conveniently forgot about. Sarah's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Dad, please, we are begging you. Do not do this to us. We are your children. We love you. We have always loved you." I shook my head slowly. "No, Sarah, you do not love me. You love my money. You loved what I could give you. And when I could not give you anything, you threw me away like garbage." Sarah broke down completely, sobbing uncontrollably. Michael stood frozen, his face pale with shock. They had come here expecting to bully me into changing my mind, to manipulate me with guilt and tears. They had not expected me to stand my ground. They had not expected me to fight back. I reached over to the small table and picked up the folder Arthur had left with me. I pulled out a stack of papers and handed them to Michael. "This is a formal notice of your forfeiture. You are no longer beneficiaries of my estate. The money will go to the charities I have designated, overseen by Emily, who is now the sole trustee." Michael stared at the papers, his face going white. "Emily? You made Emily the trustee? She is the one who abandoned you. She is the one who moved across the country and never looked back." I shook my head. "Emily is the only one who ever truly loved me. She did not abandon me. She was trying to protect me from you and your greed." Sarah looked up, her face streaked with tears. "Emily is not even here. She does not care about you. She never has." I smiled, a warm, genuine smile. "You are wrong, Sarah. Emily is here. She has been here for the past few weeks, visiting me every single day. She came back the moment she found out what was happening, and she has been taking care of me, making sure I am comfortable and happy. She has shown me more love in the past few weeks than you have shown me in the past 3 years." I pressed a small button on the armrest of my chair, and the door to my room opened. Emily walked in, her face calm and composed. She looked at her siblings, her eyes filled with a mixture of pity and disdain. "Michael, Sarah!" Her voice was quiet, but it carried an unmistakable edge. "I think it is time for you to leave." Michael opened his mouth to argue, but Emily held up a hand, cutting him off. "You have no right to be here. You have no right to demand anything from Dad. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them." Sarah started to protest, but Emily shook her head firmly. "Leave now, or I will have security escort you out." Michael grabbed Sarah's arm and pulled her toward the door. As they reached the threshold, Michael turned back, his face twisted with hatred. "This is not over, Dad. We will fight this. We will take you to court. We will make sure everyone knows what you have done to us." I smiled, a cold, triumphant smile. "Go ahead, Michael. Take me to court. I will be happy to tell the judge how you abandoned me. I will be happy to show him the records of your neglect. I have nothing to lose, but you have everything to lose." Michael stormed out, dragging Sarah behind him. The door slammed shut, and the room fell silent. Emily walked over to me and took my hand, her eyes glistening with tears. "I am so sorry, Dad. I should have been here sooner. I should have fought harder." I squeezed her hand gently. "You are here now, Emily. That is all that matters." The court case took 6 months. Michael and Sarah hired expensive attorneys and tried every legal tactic they could think of. They argued that I was not mentally competent, that Arthur had manipulated me, that Emily had coerced me into changing the trust agreement. But the evidence was overwhelming. I underwent a psychological evaluation, and the doctors confirmed I was fully competent. Arthur presented the original trust documents, complete with the clause that clearly stipulated the forfeiture conditions. Emily testified about her siblings' neglect and her own efforts to reconnect with me. The judge took less than a week to make his ruling. The forfeiture was upheld. Michael and Sarah were officially cut out of the inheritance. All they got was a lifetime of regret and the knowledge that they had lost everything because of their own greed and neglect. The aftermath was bittersweet. I had won the legal battle, but the emotional scars remained. I had lost 2 children to greed, and I would never get them back. But I had gained something even more precious. I had regained the love of my youngest daughter, Emily. Emily moved back to town and bought a small house near the nursing home. She visited me every single day, bringing home-cooked meals, reading to me, and taking me for walks in the garden. She arranged for me to have better care, upgrading my room to a private suite with a view of the lake. She made sure I was comfortable and happy, and she never once mentioned the money. The charities I had designated began receiving their funding, and I received letters of gratitude from organizations that helped orphans, battered women, and sick children. I had used the money to make a difference in the world, and it was a far greater legacy than handing it over to children who had abandoned me. 1 year after the trial, Emily came to visit me with a special request. "Dad," she said, her eyes shining, "I have been thinking about something. I want to start a foundation in your name, a foundation that helps elderly people who have been abandoned by their families. We can provide legal assistance, counseling, and financial support. We can help people like you who have been left behind." I looked at my daughter, my heart swelling with pride. She had grown into a remarkable woman, one who understood the true meaning of family and love. "That is a beautiful idea, Emily. I would be honored to have a foundation in my name." Emily smiled, pulling me into a warm embrace. "Thank you, Dad. I will make you proud." And she did. The Charles Harrison Foundation became a beacon of hope for abandoned seniors across the state. It provided them with legal representation, emotional support, and a community of people who understood their pain. Emily worked tirelessly, dedicating herself to the cause with a passion that inspired everyone around her. I spent my final years in peace, surrounded by the love of my daughter and the knowledge that I had made a difference. I watched Emily build the foundation into a thriving organization, and I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. My legacy was not just about money anymore. It was about the lives we had touched, the hearts we had healed, and the message we had sent to the world. Family is not defined by blood. It is defined by love, loyalty, and sacrifice. Michael and Sarah had proven that blood meant nothing without those qualities. But Emily had shown me that true family is the one you choose, the one that stands by you even when it is easier to walk away. I used to ride upon your shoulders thinking you could touch the sky. Every road felt less uncertain when I saw the world through your eyes. You were stronger than the mountains, taller than the northern pines. And when the winter winds were coming, you would stand between them and I. Time kept moving like the river. You slipped slowly off the sea. But no matter where life took me, you were always part of me. I am my Father's daughter. Every step I take, and every time I choose to stand when it is easier to break, I carry your courage in my heart, your fire inside my soul. And though the years keep moving on, your love still leads me home. You taught me strength is not in power, but in kindness when it is hard. You taught me how to keep on going when the road grows cold and dark. Every lesson, every story, every laugh around the flame lies within me like an echo, calling softly through my name. And when I face my greatest battles, when I feel I cannot go on, I can hear your voice beside me saying, "Child, you are stronger than you know. I am my Father's daughter." In every step I take, and every time I choose to stand when it is easier to break, I carry your courage in my heart, your fire inside my soul. Although the years keep moving on, your love still leads me home. One day the snow will cover footprints. One day the fire will burn low. But the things a father gives his daughter are the things that never go. Not the gold or not the stories, not the battles that he won, but the quiet way he loved her and the woman she becomes. I am my Father's daughter, and I always will remain. Through every triumph, every loss, through every joy and every pain, the world may change around me. The stars may fade above, but I will always carry with me my Father's endless love. And when they ask me who I am, I will smile and answer softly, I am my Father's daughter. I am my Father's daughter. Thank you for listening to this story on Vindication. If you enjoyed it, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. I read every single one, and I want to know where you are watching from today. Drop your country in the comments and tell me, have you ever been let down by people who were supposed to love you? I will be reading and responding. And remember, a lone wolf might lose his mate, but he never loses his teeth. See you in the next story.